Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.
And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. Gerald and we're back with come right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate you listening to all of our shows. And if you can, please give us that magical 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you could like, share, and subscribe today to get the latest notifications on when we go live with Humanican Media, which we're now linked to. Go ahead and subscribe there to get all the great stuff that Josh is doing there. Yep, also as well, of course, Pop Culture Cosmos, PC Multiverse, State of Pro Wrestling, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and whatever we do right here in Humanican Media and, of course, at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without a good friend, and we're shifting from, for this week only, Monday to Friday, because I wanted to give Melinda a little bit bigger break. She's in the middle still of a move. It's a good friend indeed. It is the man that helped me create Pop Culture Cosmos. It is my compadre in crime. It is the guy who had to deal with me at National University for way too long. It is Josh the Great Peterson. And Josh, great to have you here. Have you had any fun finding toilet paper lately?
Oh man, funny you ask. You know, I called you last night and I was like mad because we were supposed to record Super BS, and I said,
yeah,
I'm being sent on or I have to go out and find some toilet paper because everybody's losing their minds over the dock worker strike, and they're buying out toilet paper, which makes no sense because toilet paper is a domestic product. So I get to Walmart, toilet paper's all gone. But luckily they brought out like 2 pallets right as I was, meandering down that aisle, and I was able to grab some. But I'm sitting there telling people, I'm like, hey, toilet paper is made in America, and they're like, oh, what? So I don't know, man. Not a lot of it's like toilet paper, paper towels, like there's all the pastas and stuff. Like, it was really weird because a lot of that stuff is domestically made and everyone's freaking out over it. And I think it's because the media keeps publishing these articles and like, during the dock strike, what items are you panic buying? And it's causing people to freak out. And I think it's having the negative intended, not the intended effect,
I have never heard you more desperate than in the phone call that I had yesterday.
I was just so stinking mad at how dumb people can be. Like, do your research, find out where, like, maybe in school they need to start like teaching where products are made and not just like about geography. They need to tell you like what's made in those places so that if there's a dock strike is mostly luxury items, it's toys. Like, my business is probably going to suffer if this thing doesn't subside here soon. But oh my gosh, man, like it was I was mad last night. Like, I was so mad that I had to go out and buy toilet paper because people didn't know where toilet paper came from.
Yeah, exactly. If it's something like that, that's different. I mean, not as many food items will be affected. It is more, like you said, consumer goods, consumer electronics, things of that nature. Like when we do our normal Black Friday preview, if it is still ongoing, then obviously that will be very much affected by what will be available and on sale at that point in time. But for milk, which I saw pictures of empty spaces like I saw on your social media. I mean, that's crazy. I went to Walmart too after our conversation. I was just wondering, maybe you guys should do that. No one in Las Vegas is panicking.
Everyone kept their sanity in Las Vegas.
Yeah. Just walk right in. Just aisles of toilet paper to be found everywhere.
My gosh, man. I don't know. Maybe it's a Texas thing where everyone's more doers instead of thinkers out here. I don't know, but yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's we as a species. I'm gonna tell you, just if I was an alien coming down to this planet, I would just go ahead and just shake my head.
No,
Just
I'm
shake
good.
my head sometimes at the way humanity is sometimes. Just
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy.
None of it makes sense.
No, but we're here talking pop culture anyways. But of course, a great weekend to have as far as a lot of talk and as far as pop culture is concerned. I wanted to bring you on specifically today because I wanted to have, and I'm pushing back the State of Pro Wrestling to the Monday show because I needed us to talk about Joker Folly Adieu, which is the sequel to, at the time, before Deadpool and Wolverine, the biggest R-rated movie of all time, Joker Folly Adieu, with, of course, Joaquin Phoenix and, of course, Lady Gaga. That comes out this weekend. A lot of anticipation, a lot of hype for it. I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. We'll also be talking about The Wild Robot and how people cannot be sleeping on this movie. And I'll talk more about it here in a little bit. Also, as well, Lord of the Rings of Power, just ended its second season run. And Josh, I have a lot more hope about it, and I'll tell you why, and that's coming up later in the show as well. But first up, my friend, it is Joker Folly Adieu, Adieu, Adieu,
Dude.
Adieu, because something like I gotta get. I know if this gets translated out to our friends out there in France, they're just probably just like rolling their eyes as we were trying to pronounce it. But Joker Folly Adieu is coming out this weekend in a major rollout as far as the box office is concerned. They did go in a little bit of a different direction, more courtroom, more musical, because Joker, it's, the movie starts off, and this is not a spoiler, it's just the fact as far as what you've seen in the trailers, is that he's in Arkham Asylum. He does meet Lady Gaga's character in Arkham Asylum, who's also an individual there that's in Arkham Asylum as well. They fall in love, and then it goes in between fantasy and reality as far as the crimes that he has committed and what goes on from there. Your thoughts, my friend? The reviews have been
All over the
decidedly
place.
mixed, I should say. Your thoughts on the prospects of it doing well? I don't expect it to do $1 billion. I think that's asking an R-rated movie twice in a row to do $1 billion. I think is way over bounds if I was at Warner Brothers, but let's say $600-700 million. Do you think that's out of the realm of possibility for Joker 2?
This sounds bad. I mean, maybe five. What? I'm sorry. What did you say? What did you think it was going to hit?
I think it's $600 or $700 million out of the range.
I'm thinking 5, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so let me explain.
So you're saying half the amount it would make, or it made on the first one.
The first one was unique, right? The first one was unique. Nobody really knew quite what to expect from it. It was a Joker movie, right? So everyone's still high on the Heath Ledger Joker and wanting to see something along those lines happen again, which I think, Joaquin Phoenix was a different Joker, but he captured the character pretty well in the first one.
Got an Oscar for it.
Got an Oscar for it, yeah. But going back to it and, seeing going back to that world, like and knowing that it's not like fully attached to anything else, I think it kind of I just don't think that they're gonna hit that gold twice, like they did in the first one, because like I said, the first one, no one ever seen anything like that done before with a superhero movie. Going back to it though, and then plus all like the reviews came out a long time before the movie came out. So I think
because it went to the film festivals.
Yeah, that really worked against it, because if they didn't have all the mixed reviews of it, I think maybe it might have hit that $600-700 threshold, but I don't think this was a smart choice having that, the reviews come out early. I think the Venom was the same thing, right? Venom, the Let There Be Carnage. I think there's been a lot of early screenings and people writing about that one already too.
That I agree with you. That's a very smart and very astute analysis, because sometimes when you go on the circuit, where you go to those shows, where you go to those expos, where you go to the Cannes, the film festivals and all that, or even if it's the Southwest films, South by Southwest film festivals and whatnot, those festivals may work against you, but they could work for you if you think you've got something that was, that would build the hype. And I'm thinking that Todd Phillips thought he had a really good sequel on his hands. But then again, they didn't even plan on a sequel. It wasn't until it made $1 billion and Warner Brothers backed up the Brinks trucks to both him and Joaquin Phoenix before they decided to do it. So you could say it was already, I don't want to say set up for disaster, but say set up for not achieving the same level of success as the previous one because they had no intention of making a sequel in the first place.
Well, that's just it with all things art, right? So he made that movie. I remember interviews when the first one came out, and they asked him, "Hey, you plan on like doing a follow up or anything?" And he was very specific about saying, "No, no, this was it." And then it did really well, and then they wanted a sequel, and I don't think the heart was in it for this one as much as it was for the first one. So that's not to say that this one's not worth watching or it's not going to be good. I just don't think that because it wasn't something that Todd Phillips like truly wanted to do. And I don't know about Joaquin Phoenix either. I don't feel like it's going to, like I said, I don't feel like it's going to hit that, hit that magic well that the first one found.
It's so funny because you look back on it, Joaquin Phoenix won the Oscar for the Joker, and he isn't even considered by many to have the best performance as the Joker. Heath Ledger, who also won the Oscar for the same essential role as the Joker, they both have won an Oscar for, is always considered the best one by many people out there. But still, his performance still was outstanding nonetheless, and was probably the best performance of that year in most people's opinion. I'm pretty sure ours as well. I'd have to go back to make sure, but yeah, I don't think anybody would disparage what he did in the previous film. And I don't want to say, or hear, I've not read any reviews or seen reviews that saying he was just going through the motions or just phoning it in or anything like that. It's just, like you said, finding the inspiration for a movie that, hey, I really didn't want to make in the first place until they backed up a whole bunch of money my way. I mean, what can we do differently this time around? Oh, we'll make it a courtroom drama. Oh, we'll make it a musical. Oh, we'll get Lady Gaga, who I hear great things about in the movie. That's one of the highlights of the movie, is that I've heard universal praise for her. But still, it isn't enough to get as far as, I guess, maybe a not as well laid out storyline for Joker this time around, Josh.
About stuff like this is the fact, especially when it comes to franchises, to say no to studios when they want sequels to them. I was reading something about Josh Hartnett turned down the role of Batman before Ben Affleck took it, and he got blacklisted, or as either Ben Affleck or Chris Nolan's Batman. One of the two roles he turned down, he got blacklisted. He was saying and it took him years to get another role. So I mean, what they're.
Mm-hmm. You still with us, Josh? So, okay. Josh, you there? Your internet's ping-ponging.
Oh, sorry. All right. Yeah, but like I said, we don't think about the stuff that happens on the back end. So as a director, for Todd Phillips, I think that if the studio says, hey, we want a sequel to Joker, regardless of whether or not he wants to make it, like he has to, or else, that could be a detriment to his career too.
Absolutely. And again, Josh Hartnett, but he also, Josh, I think, wanted to take some time off as well from a personal nature, but he has come back. I'm hoping people check out Trap, because I hear decent things about Trap, even though it didn't do well at the box office. But now that they've got Second Life on streaming, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm definitely interested to see how Joker Folie à Deux performs at the box office. But I'm not going to say I disagree with you, Josh, because we're both, whether we say 500, 600, $700 million, I think that's obviously a 30, 40, 50% decrease in the amount of money he made the first time. It all depends on how the executives at Warner Brothers see, as far as did they see the Joker being that big of a success the first time around and are now planning accordingly, or are they planning it like, oh, okay, it made this, it did way above what we expected the first time around, so whatever it does now probably was what it should have done in the first time around.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that. But then again, we could both be wrong with all the artistic elements being added into this one. It's very possible that while film people might not have enjoyed it that much, the average moviegoer, like you and I, might go and see this thing and come out thinking like, wow, that's amazing. But I don't know. I think also we've talked about this before with the DC universe being in such flux over the past like 3 years that it's might be turning people off from watching anything DC related until James Gunn's new project comes out.
And I think this time around, though, Todd Phillips, no matter how well it does, I think he has definitively said, that's it. I did another one. I ain't doing no more. And then obviously whenever we get out of the Matt Reeves universe, and that's the thing that's still complicating matters, is because the Matt Reeves universe with the Penguin going on right now at Max, still has another Batman on the way, and the Matt Reeves universe doesn't seem far from being finished. That still is kind of confusing the normal entertainer audience, as far as being able to ascertain, okay, what's going on? What's the difference between this and James Gunn universe? That's still coming into play even after Joker 2 comes out.
Yeah, and I'm seeing all these words on other projects too that I thought were sidelined, like the what's his name, J.J. Abrams' Superman movie. Now they're saying that Robert Pattinson's Batman might, after all, be the DCU Batman. And I heard Jensen Ackles was being cast as Batman. There's a lot of people. I guess the studios really want to fast track a Batman movie, which is great, but it can also be a very dangerous thing for them, as we've seen what happened last time we try to fast track superhero movies. They don't always turn out that well.
And your favorite and one of mine, Constantine, that was talked about and bandied about as far as return for Keanu Reeves before the James Gunn takeover of the DC universe. We don't even know what the status of that is going forward as well. I would love to finally get a reintroduction or a return to that universe, because even though it did okay at the box office at the time, it found another life on home video and now streaming.
Yeah, I really love that Constantine movie, and I'm excited they're making a new one. I hope that they keep to it, but also I know they're talking about maybe having it be a I'll call it like the Elseworld stuff they're talking about, but I feel like it would do well in the James Gunn universe, especially if they plan to do a Justice League Dark, which everybody's been hoping for a really long time.
What are your thoughts out there on Joker Folie à Deux? I think we want to be able to go ahead and just realize what's going on with the Joker 2 as it comes out to the box office. I just would love to hear your thoughts. Is this something you're interested in? Are you getting a little bit apprehensive because of the mixed reviews so far? Or are you willing to go ahead and check out Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix in Joker Folie à Deux? Please let us know your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, there's much more to talk about on today's program. Speaking of the box office, we've been doing some other programming, throwing them up there on the Pop Culture Cosmos, so we haven't had a chance to catch people up. Because in the fall, there's kind of hits and misses so far. Obviously, Beetlejuice is one of the biggest September's movies ever. So congratulations to Tim Burton on that kind of success. But with Beetlejuice out there, still doing okay. Another movie has really gained some interest, and I'm really, really happy for in The Wild Robot, my friend. A couple weeks ago, Transformers 1, on the anniversary, the 40th anniversary of Transformers becoming a cartoon, becoming a thing, becoming an entity. A lot of hype went into Transformers 1, and it didn't do as well as expected. Worldwide, it might make up for a little bit of the losses that it hasn't gotten here. But the next week, a total surprise came out into some people in The Wild Robot, getting outstanding reviews. It's one of the highest rated reviews of the year on Metacritic. And as an animated feature, my friend, it looks like it may have a chance to really has some legs, and for DreamWorks, a hit at the box office.
You know, DreamWorks has always been really good at making animated films, and I'm not just talking about Shrek. Like they've done like How to Train Your Dragon. I know there's been a couple.
Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Meatballs, yeah. Like there's always those movies, and they always pack this emotional punch, you know. And if it's something, if there are always movies that it's okay for parents to take their kids to go see. Don't have to worry about any like adult content sneaking into them, and you know, they always tell a good story, and there's a good moral behind all of them. So that being said, like I'm glad to see the Wild Robots doing really well. The only thing that's a real shame about this is that they didn't advertise it very well. There's not a lot of marketing for this movie. I didn't even know that it existed until you know, you told me about it, and I checked out the trailer for it, and I was like, wow, this looks really good. Had I known about it, maybe I would have taken my kids to see it.
It actually got off to a decent start, 35 million here domestically. It could find some life and continued legs. I think it probably will because of word of mouth, Josh. There's been a lot of good word about this film, and it could be the best rated animated movie of the year. Obviously, Inside Out 2 has garnered such huge praise and obviously a lot of box office dollars. But I think when it comes right down to it, a lot of people that get a chance to see it will probably prefer The Wild Robot more. It reminds me a lot of the uphill battle that The Iron Giant, which one of my friends worked on back in the day, in the late 90s, went through. And it ultimately did not find a life at the box office. It had to find its audience and its praise in the life thereafter on home video and then now on streaming. So I think that what I like about this, yes, it could have advertised better. It could have been pushed better. It could have been put in a better period of time than right in the middle of the school year, which I thought was kind of perplexing. I think this movie could have competed in May when all those bad movies were coming, or poor performing movies were coming out in May. I think it could have done a really good job then, or April, or just a time where it could have found a larger audience. But I have a feeling this movie has been so praised and is so beloved, Josh, that it will ultimately find success wherever it goes.
Oh, of course, too. And you know, one of the big things with kids movies, if you've noticed, you know, since the streaming services have become a popular option, like a lot of parents like wait until they come out on streaming to, you know, watch these movies with their kids. So assuming they show the numbers for streaming revenue like that, I'm sure it's going to do, you know, pretty well on when it hits you know, the home theater also.
I can't wait to do so. I want to be able to check it out. I may even check it out at the theaters. We'll see what happens. But The Wild Robot is finding some success with a really good, well above expected opening. Hopefully it will keep a good number, even though it will be faced off against Joker Folie à Deux. We'll find out in the coming days, weeks, how well it will do. But again, wishing all the best for The Wild Robot, one of the highest rated movies of 2024 across the board. Check it out on Metacritic. I mean, that for a score in the mid to high 80s to actually have that is really good for a movie. So yeah, absolutely. If you're interested in checking out a movie that's not necessarily for kids, it's also kids and adults, go ahead and check out The Wild Robot, starring Lupita Nyong'o. And there you go. Absolutely. If you go ahead and get a chance, please go ahead and check it out and let us know your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. But before we hit the half-hour break, I wanted to ask you your thoughts on Transformers 1. You know, it's something that I don't know, my friend. It is not off to a great start. It still has money to get internationally, which is a big part of the equation for the Transformers. But if it doesn't end up doing well, because it looks like it's already being lapped by the Wild Robot here domestically, is that a telling sign for the Transformers franchise to Hasbro, my friend?
So I don't know, I was thinking about this, and watching the trailer, watching the animation style for Transformers 1, I think that's a big thing that's turning people off of it because it looks like a Saturday morning cartoon. It
But was
doesn't.
that their homage to the anniversary of the original cartoon?
But the original one still looks to me more appealing than watching this one, though. This looks like the days of like cheap computer animation you would get on something like Beast Wars. So that's one thing that was pushing me away from it. Also, I think people like Transformers, but I don't think they like it in the animated form. Like the animated forms need to stick to like Netflix and things like that. If you're going to put the money into a movie, you need to stick with the live action stuff because that's what seems to work for this franchise. People want to go and watch that. Transformers is not a power hitter amongst children anymore, if you've noticed.
Yeah. And that's something I think we'll have to see. Again, with Transformers, obviously it had such huge success with the Michael Bay films. Paramount, I think it's a Paramount product, and that they are responsible for most of it. And they've been achieved, in the earlier part of the century, some huge success off of it, especially internationally. So it's kind of disappointing to see what the returns were. But again, I understand. I was asking when we talked about this, Melinda and I, why they put it out when they out. And I've realized later on that it was because of the 40th anniversary. But I still think the timing for a movie like this, when kids are in school, Josh, parents, when kids go back to school, are limited on time and are not able to take the kids to go out and see every kids film that comes out during that period of time. They usually have to wait until spring break, winter break, or the summer to do so.
Yeah, and that's true too, because we're right in the midst of having kids. I can testify this to myself. We're right in the midst of volleyball season, football season, softball season. There are a lot of sports going on right now. So if you're someone who has kids that do activities like this, when are you going to have time to go to the movie theaters? So that's if this were something that released closer to like a vacation, even like I don't know what the 4-day weekend is coming up here, or out here we get a fall break, but closer to Thanksgiving, Martin Luther King Day or whatever, just put it out at a time when people actually have a moment to go to the movie theaters, because this is at that time of the year where parents can barely breathe.
Yes, absolutely. I just kind of weird placement and timing on it, outside of the fact that you are paying homage to the 40th anniversary. Same thing with the Wild Robot, but I think the Wild Robot probably will find an audience, and a consistent audience, at least enough to turn a profit during this part of the season. But yeah, we'll find out how it goes. But last but not least, before we head to the break, my friend, Beetlejuice. I know that a lot of people are reliving their late 80s aura with Beetlejuice and the success that it has. I think it exceeded expectations, this return to the world of Beetlejuice, which leads me to the question, even though Michael Keaton did not say he was going to do another one, I think just like what we talked about with Joker 2, they're going to back up the Brinks truck once again for a Beetlejuice.
Yeah, I mean that sounds about right. I don't think he wants to do a third one. I don't think he even really wanted to do a second one or expected to do a second one. But look at the supporting cast of Jenna Ortega and Winona Ryder. People seem to be really like into those characters and that
Plus,
style.
it also fits with the 3 times you have to say it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, even if they get to a point where Michael Keaton doesn't want to do it anymore, like I imagine they'll at least do some sort of spin-off to, and give those other characters life again on the screen in some fashion.
Well, we'll definitely see how it continues to fare as it winds up its box office run, then heads to home video, but is definitely one of the big success stories of this time period in 2024, and definitely one of the biggest September movies on record. So kudos to Tim Burton and the cast and crew of the movie Beetlejuice. So if you have thoughts on Beetlejuice, please let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, 1/2 hour down, 1/2 hour to go here on the show. Wanted to go ahead and say thank you so much again for watching. Please support Josh Peterson today, not only on Humanica Media, which you're watching this right now on, hopefully on YouTube, but also as well at the Happy Hoarder. Get something now while you can, because you never know what can happen, right, Josh? Things can run out just like toilet paper.
I know if they don't take care of this strike, we might be hurting come holiday season. I know the ports on the West Coast are still open, or most of them.
Yes,
so
the West Coast is not affected.
Yeah, so we're still getting product. Luckily, my distributors are on the West Coast, so they're still getting stuff in that way. But if those ports end up closing up, man, it's gonna cause some serious problems for us.
Absolutely. So please support the Happy Hoarder on social media, and also as well, you can go ahead and let them know if you're looking for something in particular while there's still a distribution and way to get stuff. The Happy Hoarder is for you for all your collectible needs. But my friend, there is still much more to talk about on today's program. You said the other day, it's actually about a week ago, the other day, Gerald, we got to talk about the Lord of the Rings. And the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, finally ended its season 2. I got a chance to finish off the episodes last night with I won't go too much into spoiler town as far as it's concerned, with the war for Eregion, stuff going on, the upheaval in Numendor, just the whole Bombadil, who the stranger really is, his identity is revealed, and of course the most interesting part of this whole thing, Gadriel, of course, Sauron, the dwarves, that stuff going on as far as it's the upheaval going there as well, and the fact that they couldn't help initially their friends, the elves, with the battle for Eregion. Just the whole stuff going on, my friend. Your thoughts so far on Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power? For me, I'm just going to give it an overall thoughts right now. I think it was better than season 1. It didn't have to do as much. And when it focuses on the right things, it's actually pretty good, my friend. As long as it focuses more on the Sauron stuff, or Sauron related stuff, as far as, everything's related to Sauron there, but the storylines that are more related and closely related to Sauron, I think, is the better the show gets.
It's funny you say that, because I think the second season is more a show about Sauron than it is any of these other characters. Like, yes. Season 1, they came in, you didn't know too much about Sauron, obviously, until what was it, the Sauron revealed who he was to Galadriel
right at the end
of the first season. And the first season, don't get me wrong, it wasn't terrible. Like, I don't understand all the hatred towards this show. Like, to me, and I've talked about this with you before, like, any excuse I have to go back to Middle Earth, I will take, because even though, same thing with Harry Potter, even though those sequel movies are not great, like, I still enjoyed going back to that universe. So
it had to do so much in as far as world building, literally, in season 1, that I think it sometimes it really went over its head, but I thought it was okay as well.
Yeah. So going into season 2, like, they kind of sidelined Galadriel and Elrond, and I forget what the dwarf character's name is, and made this a show about Sauron forging those rings. And even Celebrimbor, like that, I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Celebrimbor.
Sorry.
The maker of the rings.
The maker of the rings. Yeah. So he even like him, like they giving him a role in this episode, these episodes, like, he nailed it, man. Like, I was completely sold in Sauron.
I love his last line. Spoiler of the season. I'll just say I love his last and final lines of the season, my friend.
I haven't watched the last episode yet, but
You'll like it. You'll like it.
Like I watch those scenes where Sauron is talking to him, and like when the deceit is discovered, and I was sitting there thinking like, wow, never seen evil done in a television, not on any form like that before. Like I just felt it in my chest, man. Like it was something. Like I really enjoyed that. And the battle scenes were okay. Obviously not as high, not as well produced as the Peter Jackson stuff was, but still, like those last the second to last episode really packed a punch. Even the smooch, man. Even the smooch.
Even the smooch, indeed. But we won't say who was smooching, but yeah, even the smooch, indeed. I liked it because as the season got more in depth, Josh, they started to focus on the things that were working better for the series, and it was anything closely related to Sauron, Celebrimbor, the Battle for Eregion, the stuff like Numendor, and the stuff like the Stranger, even to the extent the dwarves storyline, they kind of got put to the back end, the back seat. They all took a back seat, or they got little bits and pieces, and that's it for the most part worked better for the season. I think they realized what works best, Josh, right now for this series to continue and for to keep getting eyes on it. And that's, people want to know about Sauron because I think it's Charlie Dempsey is the actor's name. He
Vickers,
is doing
right?
an outstanding. Pardon?
Was it Vickers that did the first one? I forget what his name was.
Yeah, I'll get the names here in a second. But the actor who plays Sauron, both this one and the previous one, especially this one, is really, they really did a number on Celebrimbor, and it is really paying off for me as a good way to go ahead and end this season. And I'll just leave it at that. This season got better as it went along, and that's what you like to see.
Yeah, and that's what we were hoping for. And they kind of led into the last 3 seasons of the show are going to be about the war itself, which is kind of what we've been waiting for. And even the war itself is more a story about Sauron than it is anything. I mean, look at the opening scenes to the Lord of the Rings trilogy, right? It's like they open, it's more like there's a little bit of stuff about oh man, I'm having a brain fart. What's the Numenor, Isildur? There's a lot of stuff about
Isildur. Yes.
Isildur,
They even left the Isildur stuff to the side, which again was, I think, well placed because it's not that interesting compared to what people want to see in the Sauron storylines. Yeah,
because I mean, on the other side of the fence from like Frodo, and then we have Sauron, who's the the main antagonist of these stories. And if you're going to build up to that War of the Rings, you really want to do his origin stories right. And I think they're on the right path towards doing that.
So I think they learned a lot of lessons from season 1, Josh, and I think they applied them towards season 2, especially as it went along. So I am giving this a bigger thumbs up than I did to the first season. Not the first season was okay. I think this was better because, again, the way they shifted everything towards the storylines that worked the best and gave less time to the ones that didn't, I think was a very smart move. And still, they have these other branching storylines that I think they may have to go ahead and consolidate in season 3. But I can't go too much into spoilers. I want to. I mean, a lot of you guys that know the Lord of the Rings already know most of the spoilers that would be coming up in it, but they're playing things out as opposed to just doing bullet point by bullet point how Tolkien laid it out. They want to probably do this over 4 or 5 seasons is what I'm gathering is. And so in order to do so, they have to stretch it out a little bit because it culminates, it has to culminate to the start of the movies. So, that intro, like you said, to the Lord of the Rings movies that you see in Fellowship of the Rings, that's where essentially this series has got to end, Josh. So in order to do that, you got to stretch things out a little bit. But so far, again, season 2 has worked out pretty good.
And one thing I do really commend them on is the fact that despite all of like the nasty things people have said about this show online, they didn't stop any of the storylines they started in season 1.
Yeah, they didn't stop them, but they gave more time to the ones that are working out better.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what you want. If you start something, you got to finish it, And I think hopefully by the end of the show, even the ones that are a little less spectacular will have some sort of meaning to the overall plot.
I hope so. But again, even those short times that we spent with those other storylines, those were a little bit of a drag for me. I was very tempted to hit like the fast forward button. I'm not going to get you wrong on a couple occasions. Let's get to Sauron, baby. Let's get to Sauron. There you go. Come on. Let's get to Sauron. Bring it on. Yeah, evil. Let's get to the evil stuff. I know that's what I know you guys and gals out there we're thinking the same thing, because there were sometimes it's just like I said, they had to give and continue the storylines, all these storylines that they started season 1, but they devoted less time to it, and they were smart in doing so, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm excited to see this last episode this weekend. I know I've seen it getting like 8s, 7s and 8s across the board, which is pretty good considering where the show came from. So
I'd give it about an 8 for this season, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's still pretty like high praise. So hopefully, they'll go into another season and things will be only go up from here.
One of the things I do want to say is I agree with you. The mind games that Sauron was playing with Celebrimbor during the mid part of this season, I think really is what shifted this into what was a okay series into a little bit better series. And I know it has to compete with House of the Dragon. I understand that there's always going to be those comparisons because they both came out around the same time initially. They're never going to avoid it now, forevermore. They're always going to be interlinked with each other. And of course, the price tag involved too that Amazon had to pay to get this underway and pay the tokens, $500 million, that it's all been around. It will never probably justify the money that's spent on it. But for the production values that you've got for a television series, for a streaming series, I think it's been good. And the numbers have drifted off from season 1, but they haven't drifted far enough to say, you know what, this series is in trouble.
Yeah, well, I think with how high a praise these last 2 episodes have gotten, I think it has a very good chance of bringing a lot of people back and actually watching the entire season at once. Because that was one thing that was really hard with the first one was, having to wait week to week to see these episodes. Like I would have much rather watched it all at once.
I agree. Binging this might be a great way to go ahead and catching this. But if you have been reluctant to go ahead and catching the Rings of Power on Amazon Prime, I would say go out of your way to catch it. You might want to, if you haven't started it yet, Josh, would I be remiss in saying maybe you want to fast forward through a little bit of season 1 just to get to season 2, which is really an improvement over what they did in season 1.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point somebody will come out with like a cut where it shaves off all the fat and kind of puts you right into the meat of things.
What are your thoughts out there on season 2? That's season 2 of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. We're actually really strong on it. Sometimes these series, for the most part, actually, they've gotten worse with time goes on. But in the case of Lord of the Rings, Rings of the Power, it's actually gotten better as time goes on. The series has been focusing on the things that I think most fans and most, whether you're Lord of the Rings fans or not, most watchers and most viewers have wanted to see. So please let us know if you agree with us or still have issues with LOTR, the Rings of Power. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, I would be remiss if I left the show without talking some video games before we head on out, my friend. I know that you, Brank, and I have been talking a lot about the video games as of late. And one of the things that I wanted to go ahead and talk to you, I know Brank wanted to try and avoid the discussion because he doesn't want to get the come down on Nintendo, but Nintendo can't block us for talking about it. is emulation. I want to hear your thoughts on emulation. You and I have products and have purchased products that have emulation in them. And we have gone over the years talking about Arcade 1UP and other devices that have utilized emulation. We do know that in recent weeks, Nintendo has once again started a wave of crackdowns against sites and or software makers for emulation tools. I get that as far as what they want to do to try and stop people from utilizing stuff that will pirate today's games, but the games gone by is what I worry about. So if you try to totally obliterate emulation, Josh, you can absolutely get rid of history for games that no one will ever get a chance to play unless they're playing it on emulation. So I want to hear your thoughts on emulation. I know I do want to touch on it from time to time because, again, emulation to me, if used in the right way, can be a really useful tool to people about finding games they would have never been able to find.
Yeah, from a preservationist standpoint, I definitely think that emulation is, it's a way of preserving history, especially since a lot of these physical copies are getting more and more expensive, and or Nintendo wants people to stop downloading these things, but also they have no plans to re-release a lot of the stuff that people are trying to find. So I definitely think that if you own the cartridge or you owned it at some point, you paid for it, I think it's right that you should be able to have a emulated copy of it. But I guess the gray area is whether or not, if you didn't own it and you're just downloading stuff, I guess that's the gray area there. But also, like, Nintendo should be flattered that people are still trying to play these games, 30, 40 years after they came out.
Yeah, and that's, to me, is what it should be all about. And because I do have emulation devices, I purchased emulation devices in the past. I'm not going to be sitting here to tell you differently. I have purchased emulation devices in the past that have things on it from the Atari era that I could probably never get access to again. I could go to hundreds of swap meets, and I could go to dozens of game conventions, and I may not be able to find some of the games that I was looking to play. Yet you go to the right places, you send them in, and you have access to those games that you may have long since forgotten about or always wanted to find.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, look at oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought there. But knowing that you can't, I mean, look at things today, right? There's a lot of games that they're not going to be re-releasing because the code has disappeared for a lot of these things. So again, like from a preservationist standpoint, if someone has a way to recreate the code, or they have a way of taking apart the original game, if they have a copy of it and allowing and uploading it to the computer and allowing other people to play it, I think that's that is a noble cause, I think.
I agree with you, and it's just something where again, there's so much harshness to it. Piracy is out there, and I do know it does affect the developer, especially piracy of today's games. I get that. I understand that. But, in the days of, did Napster kill the music business?
No. If anything, it brought more attention to artists that might not have been listened to otherwise.
I mean, so I know that the games, the piracy games are out there. They're hurting some of these businesses to some extent. But these layoffs, these developers that are closing and shuttering down, you can't, I know that emulation is always talked about and a finger that's pointed at them. I don't think it's fair, because I think it's more to the reason for a lot of these games. For instance, the failure of Concord. That is a game that you can't really emulate. You can't emulate it now. I mean, you can emulate it now, but it really won't do you any good because it's an online game. So we talk about that one. But there are other games out there that didn't find the success that it needed to. And obviously the developer, Hi-Fi Rush, for example, it was an award-winning game. Fortunately, the studio was closed down. It was repurchased by someone else, so it will find a second life, at least the studio will. But it just, again, a lot of the fingers get pointed at emulation, and there is a piracy factor to it that does hurt the developer, but I don't think it hurts it enough sales-wise in most cases. No. Not all, but most cases, that's going to be the major reason why a game lives, dies, fails, or succeeds.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But like we talked about before, like Nintendo makes a majority of their yearly profit off of lawsuits. So I mean, they're always hungry, man. But you look at this though, think about the digital marketplace. All right. I know California just introduced a bill saying that you had to be very upfront about how you're not actually buying the game itself, you're buying a license for the game. Nintendo did this with the what was it, the Wii marketplace or the virtual marketplace on Wii. Like people are buying all these games because they're like, oh, you don't need to emulate, just buy it off our marketplace, we'll put it out there. But you never own these games, and they can take them away at any moment. So why dump money into something if you can't keep it? Like, even if you were to, because there's no way to take games that you buy on like the Xbox marketplace and dump it onto a hard drive, because when you plug it back in and say they take the game down, like, you just can't play that game anymore. You don't have that. They lock the actual information for the game itself behind a wall.
Again, if used properly, emulation can be something I think that's actually useful to the video game industry. You and I have talked about forever about the success of Arcade 1-Up, to the point, although their latest release of a claw machine, I don't know. Whatever you think of that, that's up to you. I don't know. I mean, obviously the claw machines have been a great success out in entertainment forums now, but Arcade 1-Up doing a home version of a claw machine, okay, your mileage may vary on that one.
Just trying something new.
Just try it, definitely, because they don't have the licenses. They've run out of licenses to buy, in their opinion, that they can afford. But the one license that they should be begging for, and the emulation that they should be begging for, which would probably, I don't want to say save, but get Arcade 1-Up back into a different stratosphere, is if they knocked on Nintendo's door, which they probably have already, and say, hey, what can we do to get a Donkey Kong machine out there, or a Zelda machine out there, or a Mario Brothers machine out there, or any one number to the Nintendo games that they could do. And that's all emulation, my friend. That's all emulation that you could put on there on a different platform. And it would create a great opportunity to reach audiences you may not have been able to reach before with Nintendo.
Yeah, but my theory here is that if Nintendo has either said no, or they wanted too much of the profit in order to make it profitable for at games.
Yeah.
At that point, or Arcade 1-Up or whatever, but at that point, there is no, unless Nintendo plans to build these arcade machines themselves, which I think in Japan, like a lot of these the arcades they have over there have Nintendo products in them. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's hard to say, because Nintendo, like, is Nintendo being greedy, or do they have some like master plan of eventually putting all these things out that we're talking about and more?
Because I think it's just money you have left on the table, literally on the gaming table, if you went and did that. Because, for instance, Pac-Man, Namco, whoever has the license for that, I mean, they've made a killing over the years because they quickly sold to those My Arcades, Arcade 1-Ups, and they made a ton of money for the emulation on those platforms, and have made tons of money since then, and found new life since then that they may have not before. This game and all the iterations of Pac-Man could have died out in the last decade, but because of what happened with Arcade 1-Up and My Arcade, they've been able to find an audience since then. And some of these other games, like the Street Fighters, and other games that have licensed themselves on this, have found a rise and increase in interest from fans and non-fans alike because of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and also Nintendo, those Arcade 1-Up could be a good marketing tool for Nintendo. They could play it during their like Nintendo showcases or whatever, and announce that partnership. That'd be really big news in the gaming world, and I guarantee you At Games would make a bunch of money off of it. But
At Games or
sorry, Arcade One Up is what I keep saying. I got the At Games arcade, so I keep.
Well, the thing is, At Games would have to, they would have the disadvantage. They have the better machine, I think, than the Arcade One Up as far as the interface overall. The problem is Arcade One Up already comes complete with the design of the actual original cab and what it looked like, cabinet and what it looked like, my friend.
The cabinet's bigger in the At Games one. I think that's what I like about it's a full-size cabinet as opposed to the little mini one.
Yeah. So, I mean, your thoughts, my friend, before we head on out on emulation. I think, again, for me, if used in the right way, it can be a good thing. I don't think we should be ashamed of it. And I understand why Nintendo and others are targeting it. But if used in the right way, I think it really can be a good way to remind people of video games past, video games history, and a reminder of what fun games that have come out through the course of time that you may not otherwise get a chance to play.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are too many. It's too much of a gray area. Like this is the same thing with like digitizing your DVD collection. Like you're allowed to create backups, but you're not allowed to like break the copyright software on the movies. So, but that that doesn't make sense. So same thing with video games. Like you're allowed to make copies of or to back up things that you own with the video games, but there's no way to do it in a legal way.
It's just crazy, my friend. But again, we want to hear your thoughts up there. As two retro gaming fans who really, I guess, support the idea of emulation, we would love to hear your thoughts on what boundaries you think the emulation should have, or you don't think there should be any boundaries at all for emulation, or do you think it's actually a good thing? Please let us know your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, but please, my friend, it's your chance, your time now. You got to go ahead and let us know what's going on with the Super BS Games Cast, Humanican Gaming, and of course, the Happy Hoarder as well.
Well, Super BS Cast is back, and it's featuring me and Gerald and Branky Poo. And we usually we're gonna start streaming. I think we're live streaming this already. We're usually Thursday evenings, generally, or Wednesdays, whichever day works out best for us. We'll get a steady time here soon. Humanican Media is just backing up the shows in whatever way we can. And Happy Hoarder, man, just check us out online. And the holiday season, I just saw that the dock strikes have been suspended. So apparently they've reached a deal. So hopefully that'll mean lots of cool product coming in this season.
Striking port workers to return to work Friday as negotiators reach an agreement. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! No, your toilet paper is saved.
Right. Whew. Crisis averted, everybody.
Oh my gosh! So for it just popped into my head.
Yeah, that foreign toilet paper, man.
Oh my god! So for Josh Peterson. I'm turning red in the face here. This is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great